I'm Sam the Gassique.
And I'm Dreadful Dan Gallagher. And we're two old buddies that have lived our life at the edge of the mainstream.
So come join us where things are a little odd. This is the
You've got to believe.
It's alive! It's loose!
This earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Oddcast Movies, Music and Gaming. And here with me, as we do every week, is Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Right, but moving quickly on from Dan, because today we've got a special guest. Which is Katie O'Hagan. Hello, Katie.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, lovely to see you. So for those that don't know, Katie played Mia in today's subject that we're going to be talking about, which is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
Be careful. They'll be looking for you.
Daddy's coming. We need to go. We need to go now.
What the fuck are you?
Shut up and listen if you want to stay alive. Ethan, you gotta get out of that house.
So, Katie, thanks for coming on. It's really great to see you. Now, I am a huge fan. I should say, so my personal experience with Resident Evil, for a start, is I've played them since the very beginning. All the mainline titles.
Okay.
A lot of the other periphery ones like Revelations and all this stuff. I've done a lot of that. I didn't even mind the first movie. The other movies after that kind of mold into one movie.
I was like, I don't hear that from too many people. So, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't differentiate any of the movies aside from the first one.
Yes. I couldn't.
First one. But I found Resident Evil 5 I quite liked, but I was like, what is this doing? Resident Evil 6 was much maligned, I guess, in the industry. And then 7 came along and it went back to its roots of literally having a Resident Evil. And that's the thing, is that I always think of Resident Evil when it started, it's like an evil that lives there. It's something that is attached to, well, essentially it's like a haunted house, right? And Resident Evil 7 brought that right back. And it was, yeah. And so for me, this was a breath of fresh air. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And part of that is obviously Mia's character as well, who I would say has arguably the most interesting arc throughout that entire game, more so than Ethan. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know, like, what happened, like what led you up to coming on board to Resident Evil 7? What's the story?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because I didn't even know I was coming on board to Resident Evil. Capcom keeps everything very quiet and secretive because they don't like spoilers. And if you would have told me this before I was involved, I'd be like, that's crazy. Like, of course you have to let, certain people know. So once I got on board and that realization happened, it was like, oh, because things slip out so easily. They just keep as much quiet as possible. So for me, I actually, as an actor, I'm living in LA, and I have agents who get me work, but I also submit myself for a lot of things. So I found a random casting call on one of the acting websites looking for, they said it was for a video game. It was a Japanese title that I couldn't even attempt to pronounce. And they basically were looking for a female in my age range, my height, and they were looking for somebody who could play demonic and possessed. So
Sick.
the moment I saw that, I got so excited because I love playing zombies. I love doing creepy voices. I just like surprising people because when they look at me, they don't expect certain voices to come out of me. So I was really excited. So I submitted myself because I fit like the majority of the criteria. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I've never done anything like this before. I'm just going to go for it. So I submitted myself and I got an audition. And when I got there, I dressed as if I was going to any other audition, like just did my makeup, did my hair, put my little boot heels on. I show up to a motion capture studio, of which I've never been in before.
Right.
It's this huge stage, all these like cameras. I mean, it was amazing. And everybody who was there for the audition was just like at a table at the front. And then I come in. And from the moment they looked at me, they're like, yeah, you're going to have to take those shoes off. And I was like, what? Because I'm not thinking, I mean, I've never done an audition that was so physical before.
Right. Okay.
So I had to take the shoes off. And then I realized even my socks were sliding. So I was like, those are gone. So I'm like barefoot in this audition. And they're like, yeah. So they gave me a general scene. It was a lot of improv. They gave me the scene. And then it was like, go. So
Right.
I am crawling on the ground. I'm making creepy noises. At one point, the director was in a chair and he's like, okay, I'm in this corner of the room. His back was to me and he's like, I want you to scare me, as if I was in a pitch black room and you're what's coming at me. Like, what would you do to scare me?
Right.
And so I literally slowly, like making the scary noises, doing all the weird stuff, just kept slowly getting closer and closer. So the sound you just knew was getting closer and closer and closer to you. So, I mean, it was so much fun, but because I hadn't done it, it was like, okay, I can't be embarrassed. I need to throw myself into this audition. So when they told me to do it, I was like, all right, let's do this. I mean, I had never done anything like this before. And so afterwards they were like, oh, okay, we'll let you know. And then they let me know that they were auditioning for the normal version of the same character because they didn't know if they'd have the same actress playing both or if they were going to have two different actresses. So they were like, we'll let you know. And I was like, oh, okay. Thinking, oh, that would really stink if they're like, we don't think she can be normal. So that would
She got the creepy stuff. She's got that nailed.
Yeah. They were like, we really like the creepy. I don't believe she can then be normal all the time.
Yeah.
So like a day later, they called me in for a callback of normal Mia. And I went in, I did that. And then I think maybe a day or two later, they called me saying they wanted to offer me the role. So
wow.
Within that, I mean, it was awesome. It was so cool. It started with just doing the kitchen demo, which, that was the surprise at E3 back in 2016.
Yeah.
So I just shot that. And that's all I thought I was going to be shooting. And they were like, we don't know if this will be a full game. You'll be contacted if we end up doing more. And then a couple months later, they said, okay, it's going to be a full game. We want to bring you in to audition with Ethan's, like the male counterpart. So I actually was in there as Mia, and I auditioned with a whole bunch of different actors as possible Ethans. And that's how I met Todd, who is our Ethan. So yeah, that was really cool. And then started filming, but it was a good year into filming when I found out it was Resident Evil.
Right.
So
okay.
I was beyond clueless. I just thought I was making a really cool horror game and that no one would know what it was. And then it ended up being Resident Evil.
Yeah. The biggest Japanese horror franchise.
And I'm almost happy I didn't know, because I think if I knew from the get-go, it might have put like a damper on things, or it might have made me, I don't know if more nervous, but at least thinking, oh, I have to live up to something.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of happy that I didn't know, because 7, as you know, is all new characters. So if you went into 7 knowing it was Resident Evil, like I might have gone back and played all the games to be like, oh, I need to know the background. When quite frankly with 7, like you don't. I mean, if you do, cool, you get an idea of things, but you don't need it.
Yeah.
So it opens up to a lot of new fans who are new to the franchise if this is where they just started.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool in that way that it offers all of that.
For sure.
It's cool that you got to sort of step in and like reestablish a new character and kind of have fun and do your own thing with it.
Yeah, like I didn't have to live up to. I mean, I give props to, because I know they did the remakes and they had new actors come into these iconic roles, and that's got to be difficult. You know, that's got to be so difficult to be like, okay, I want to give it my own thing, but these characters are also known for this stuff. So like trying to balance that. Whereas with 7, with Mia, like with the whole world, it was like, ooh, like we get to start from scratch, kind of. Like you have the base of Chris Redfield, Umbrella, you know, the BSAA, but you don't really know that throughout the game. You know, that doesn't come out until later. So it's kind of like, you just think this is like this poor crazy family. What the hell happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I loved about it, is that it's that whole, I mean, the whole idea of it just being like in the one house, and also like, this was also going down, this was also a first person, I suppose you want to say a shooter, but it's not really a shooter, but yeah, first person perspective action game.
Hide and seek.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that for those first few hours, yeah, it's literally hide and seek, pretty much, which is great. And yeah, and then towards the end, it turns into a bit more, action, orientated. But none of the Resident Evils before that had done that. And that was kind of like, I guess, from like the found footage kind of popularity. And also there was, Outlast, I think, did quite well, which was a horror game, which is first person. And that was through like a video camera as well that you could see through night vision and stuff. Not that there's something similar in this where you have like video camera parts and all this.
And it's very like, it's almost like, a lot of the time it's just almost flashlight. Like that's the little bit of light you're getting.
Yeah.
Is you have like a flashlight or a lighter or something. And it's just, that makes it extra terrifying. Yeah,
for sure. Definitely. So I was going to say, it's interesting that you did the kitchen demo as well, because I played the kitchen demo only knowing that it was like a test for the,
VR.
For VR, and also like the new engine, the RE engine that was built by Capcom to kind of show off, like, you know, look how cool this all looks. But yeah, it's first thing VR. So I went to a like a Gamescom, I think it's Eurogame or whatever, in London here, and because at that time I worked for a company called Maker Studios, and it was all influencers and YouTubers, whatever, and all this stuff. So I was able to wangle myself to get into the VR room, which hadn't been released yet. So Sony were doing these very private VR showroom things, but it was invite only. So I was able to wangle in, and they showed me kitchen, and I was sitting there going like, and so Dan, I don't think you've probably not seen it, but like the whole of kitchen is literally like it's kind of like, it's about like 10 minutes long or something, and it's like, something like that. And you're sitting in a chair, and basically there's like, I think it starts and there's a guy on the floor, and it's all like dark, and you're in a kitchen basically, and it just looks all like fucked up and like gritty and shitty and horrible and disgusting. And the idea is that this guy gets up, and you're both agents, like FBI, like cops or something like that, and he's like, got to get out of it. And anyway, then this creature, which turns out to be,
you start hearing these noises.
That's right, yeah, and it's all happening around you. So the idea is obviously when you've got the VR unit, you don't have to do anything. You're just kind of like looking around and all this stuff, because you're tied to the chair in the game, and then you start hearing all this stuff, and it's like right here in your face, and it's really horrible. It's really nasty and disgusting, and it's like putting a knife like right up, which they do in the main game as well, like right up into your face, if I remember rightly, like near your eye.
Man.
In the kitchen, the best part is so one, I got to decapitate the other guy. So
that's right. Yeah, wow. I forgot about that.
The guy disappears, and then you hear all these creepy noises, and I just throw, and the head comes bobbing out.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's amazing.
And then when basically possessed it's possessed Mia, but it's not like officially because she's in like this weird little kind of, it's like a ghost like vision or something. It's very, I don't know how exactly they explain it, but it is Mia. Right. So I come out and I have a knife. And even though you're the VR, you're the one sitting in the chair, you're safe, but I stab you in the leg. I remember people reacting to that as if they got stabbed. Like everything feels so real. You almost feel like you just got stabbed in your leg. And then the next thing you know, the person disappears. You're just hearing the creepy voices. And then these hands just come over you it's blacked out and it ends. And it was so much fun shooting that. Because that's basically what my audition was. It was like around creepy voices. Like you got to scare somebody who's just sitting there. So it's basically what my audition was what the kitchen was.
Right.
How do you film a scene like that though, where you decapitate someone?
So basically it's, you have the actor there, you come in, you fight with them, pull them out to, I believe it was like as if it went around the corner. So it was black again. So you don't see it. You just start hearing.
Okay.
And then there was like a head or something shaped like a head that had motion capture sensors on it. And that's what, after I kill, decapitate, that's what I throw out. So it registers. And then they can go in the game and make it the actual head. And visually, it looks like it. But yeah, it was like this head with sensors on it. So after I fought with the guy, he went over here. I then took it and whee.
There you go. Take that.
They give you an actual head then. They didn't give you like a cantaloupe or a
not a
mango or something.
It was like a jug that was like head size shape, and then they just put everything on it, and that's what I threw because it could bounce.
Makes sense.
Roll like a decapitated head,
Yeah. I'd like to know the research they did for how head-like is this? Let's test it out.
It was a good time. It was definitely a lot of fun. An actor, Rob, so the guy who was the one I decapitated. Mm-hmm. It's actually, if you remember in 7, I think they're called Gator Swamps. It's like the news
TV show thing. Yeah.
That's who it is in Kitchen. Okay. So the guy who gets decapitated is one of the guys from that.
Oh. I don't know where I got police officer from my head then. Maybe, I haven't done it since then. I don't know where I got that from.
Because people are like, why are we here? We need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, true. I think he was in a suit or something. Maybe that was it. He looked smart. And I've immediately thought, what was also interesting about that is that there was kind of like a lot of people were thinking, is this the new Resident Evil? But I don't think anyone clocked until after Kitchen, the way they wrote Kitchen. No one's going to be able to see it. You have to Google it. But the T had like a space between the left top and the rest of the T. So it looked like a 7. And I don't think anyone spotted that until afterwards. It's very clever. And they've done that with 8 as well, haven't they? Well, and they did it with 7, I suppose. Yeah.
As everything came out, like that's what they started doing.
Yeah, it's clever. And I remember thinking when that happened, I was like, when someone pointed it out, I was like, God, that's amazing. Such a tiny, tiny little thing, but yet giving all the clues, all the necessary clues. But yeah, that was really great.
Because when it first came out, it was all, the same color. There was that space, but you would never notice it because everything looked a little choppy and, looking. And then it was after the fact when they turned it, because Resident Evil 7 has kind of got that orangey tone to it. So, that 7 Biohazard. 8 seems to have more of like a gold.
Yellow, yeah.
Yeah, like a yellowy gold. So they kind of do that. So when they fully said, yes, this is part of Resident Evil 7 world, that's when they highlighted it in that orange, and it was like, how did I not see that?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, God, it was there the whole time. Just couldn't see it.
They're tricky like that.
Yeah, I bet. Sounds like it. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, so I've not played for. I don't think we've said this yet. On the actual podcast, we're talking about this in the pre-show bit, but I've not played Resident Evil 8. Actually, to be fair, I did the first demo, and that's it, which is and that's like 20 minutes worth. So I don't know anything. And this is going to be purely on Resident Evil 7. So for those who haven't played 8, don't worry. Neither have I. Yeah, there won't be any spoilers. But there will be spoilers for Resident Evil 7. So you've been warned. That's been out a little while now. So we can...
2017. So if you haven't played it, shame on you.
What's wrong with you? Jesus. Come on. But yeah, as I was
had
saying,
a whole pandemic to catch up, people.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very apt. Yeah. And there's a lot of mold everywhere and people in people's houses, I imagine as well. Or lack thereof, because I guess people be doing more home maintenance. Maybe they found the mold. So with Mia, as I was saying before, like it felt like out of what I loved about 7 is the way it kind of drip fed the story and everything. It's a very simple premise to begin with, but then as it kind of goes on and you start learning more about the characters through like diaries or cutscenes or whatever and bits and pieces, you start finding out a bit more about the family, the Baker family, who you're kind of trapped with to begin with, and what the majority of the game is spending time with, but also like what the bigger villain, who the bigger villain is, and all this. But you're seeing it through the eyes of Ethan. But Ethan is really kind of like the everyman. He's you. So as in like he's someone that you can place yourself on as a protagonist. But Mia, I feel like gives the insight not only into their relationship, but also as I was playing this and as I kind of went back and was going through it again and going through some of the walkthrough stuff and reminding myself, I remember thinking at the time, is this a, and this is me, Dan will tell you this, I tend to like overread into things where it's just like, maybe it's just a horror game, but I'm like, no, there's something going on. There's something deeper going on here. And yeah, exactly. And there is proof for this, but I'd be interested in what you think in the sense of like, is this a story, let's say, about how Ethan is scared of commitment and having children and all this stuff? And I do have my reasons why, but I wondered, has that been discussed? Was that ever thought of, or from your end, did you ever get a sense of that maybe?
No, that's such an interesting way to look at it. I never thought of that. I always blamed Mia. I always blamed her being immature and selfish and kind of wanting to prove something. And that's why she went and took this job. Mm-hmm. And then when the job, like, basically lying to him about what the job was. He knew she took the job, but she never really said what in particular it was. Yeah. But part of that makes me think that she didn't fully know what this job was. Mm-hmm. Because when you see that opening video and she's like, oh, I'm coming home, I'm so ready to be done with this babysitting job. Mm-hmm. When in that beginning, it seems very like she thought, yes, this child was special, but not so special. And I think it wasn't until things started going very wrong that there was that realization of like, oh, no, this isn't just a normal, like, her and Alan had that full realization of like, holy crap, what do we get ourselves into? How do we stop this? How do we fix this? So I think she was kind of selfish and wanting to prove something. Mm-hmm. And that's more how I always viewed it. Yeah. Because poor Ethan, it was the everyday man. He didn't have any sort of military background. Like he literally is just, my wife's been missing. I get a call, she's still alive. Of course I'm going to go search for her. The only thing I don't understand is why he went alone.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think anybody after 3 years of their wife just like, hey, I'm alive, but don't come and get me. Stay away. Things are bad. Stay away. Like, of course you're going to come, but why he didn't, call the local police or like have a buddy come with him? I don't know.
Yeah, you think.
Those are some questions.
I'll be honest, I started having some doubts as well when I actually got to the house. I drive there, but as soon as I got there, I'd be like, I'm not sure I want to go inside.
Yeah.
This is looking a little sketchy. There's a lot of overgrown things going on here. I think I'm going to back out, maybe go to the local police station first and then come back.
Yeah. The dead crows and all this stuff with the hanging off the trees, wherever it was. might be a giveaway that it's not.
There's a lot going on there. It's like, if you've never seen Blair Witch, when you have like stick figures hanging off of trees, turn around.
Yeah.
Just
Exactly. Well, she's been gone for 3 years. She can wait another couple of days. Exactly.
give a few hours, just hit up the cops, just something, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of sort of.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting you say like, yeah, she's gone from, having to like mature, I guess. I mean, that also kind of works its way into what I was saying a little bit as well, because it's, for me, it's like she starts off where it's all like, yeah. So if for those that don't know, like at the beginning, literally right at the beginning, it's Mia being like, yeah, as you said, like, hey, love you, can't wait to see you. Like it's all like sunny and bright to like suddenly cuts and it cuts and it's like, it's kind of weird because it's a flash forward to a flashback, if that makes sense. So it's weird because it's something that happens later in the game, but when it happens later in the game, it's actually a flashback to something that's already happened, if that makes sense. Which is cool because when you get to that point, you're like, oh shit, this is what happened hours ago at the beginning.
This is how it came to that point.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's cool that you get like those little bits and then the realization of like, oh, this is what led up to it. Okay, now I get it.
Now I get it, exactly. And that's what I quite like about, I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit here, but that's what I quite like about the game's story itself, is that it's quite non-linear. And I like it, especially when films do this as well, when you're dropped in a specific, at times very small moment in the bigger story, and you just let the story around it kind of expand and grow. And that's what Resident Evil 7 does. Like the idea of you're just this one guy turning up at a house and all this other stuff is kind of happening around you. But yeah, I do find that very interesting. But yeah, so you've got that kind of nice message. Then you got the whole thing of like her going, stay away, do not come find me, like forget about us or whatever, almost.
Before from me, ignore it.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's bullshit. Don't come. Yeah, but it's that, and so as I was kind of rewatching it, and what I remember from when I played it the first time round was that. It reminded me a little bit of, and Dad's going to laugh, but Eraserhead, in a sense where Eraserhead is the fear of having like a child. And it's very much from his point of view. The child is like alien to him. He's not sure how to deal with it. And Ethan goes into like a family unit, the Baker family, and it's all very foreign to him. It's slightly horrific and disgusting or whatever. And right from the off, the fact that he's like battling his wife and all this. But there are little elements of it like that happen throughout the game, such as when you go see Marguerite, you've got the babies hanging from the wire and all this stuff. Like
dolls.
The dolls, that's right. Things like that. Marguerite herself, her nether regions are where the monsters kind of come out and all this stuff. Yeah, exactly. And she's like, and I was like, is that the element of like the idea of childbirth being this monstrous, something that like a man, like I've got 2 kids, but you do think of it as like, it's this like weird thing, right? Yeah, exactly. Like there's something which is like you're
swirling in the vortex.
Yeah, exactly. But there's that idea of like, you don't consider it to being a child giving device. I don't know where I'm going, you know what I mean? And it's like, instead it's now become this like, what the hell is going on? This isn't what I think of it as. And the idea that comes from like the mother figure, and now it's like turned into mother and all this stuff. And I thought that was quite, and obviously later on where it's like the child is demonic, it just wants to have a family, and all this, and wants a mum and a dad and all that, but it's seen as this like the threat, the enemy, and I don't know. So that's what I was kind of thinking about it. Yeah, and I was thinking how like Mia's journey, as you were saying, from like she's quite almost childlike in that first thing, and then she becomes more like a mature woman. She's suddenly been given this role of motherhood that she specifically says she doesn't want either. I don't know. That felt like a bit more of an arc than say through the eyes of Ethan for like 90% of it anyway.
I like that it's also, you see throughout the whole game, there is this immaturity, selfishness, and it goes a bit throughout the game, and then it switches to, okay, I want to protect Ethan. So you start to see a little bit of maturity, and then it goes even further by the end of the game of like, okay, I want to make sure Ethan is safe, and I'm going to stay and fight. And then ultimately, Ethan's the one who ends up saving Mia. Yeah. But you see her maturity throughout the game of she realizes, I screwed up, I did these things, I lied, the selfishness, and then to the end where it's definitely that realization of this is what I want. My family is what I want. Ethan is what I want. And then it's not a spoiler going into 8 that is so much more expanded upon because that's in the trailer. You see Ethan and Mia and they now have a kid. Yeah. So you see this growth that happens, but then at the same time, there are these 3 years in between 7 and 8 that they stayed together, had a kid. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, definitely. Well, also that's why I found it interesting if you go down that line of thought now as well, in that, now that they've had a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. But you also see such maturity in Ethan and Mia from 7 to 8, especially if you look at it in that idea of family, children, protection, and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I love that. I never even thought of that. Now my mind's a little blown.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's
good work, Sam. I thought you were going to come up with every time he uses a weapon, it's a comment on male impotence. He's obsessed with phallic symbolism.
Yeah, there is that as well.
Why won't my gun shoot?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm taking notes. Oh, interesting. I'll bring that up later. Yeah. So I'm like in Superbad where he just keeps drawing penises, but instead I'm like doing visual references.
Crossing them out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, crossing them out. Yeah. Exactly.
Poor Ethan.
Yeah, poor Ethan. Yeah, I mean, at least it was his left hand. Could have been. It was his left hand. Right. Okay. Then I see. There's something in that which I've not.
The magic water that just lets it back.
Exactly. That's all you need. It's fine. Yeah, don't want to know what that magic water is. I'm not sure if they say it in the game. I can't remember.
I think nobody knows and everybody wants it because I'm like, decapitation, drop a little water on it, good to go. Lose a limb, a little water on it, good to go.
Yeah, that's what I love. And I also love it's like, even if you've got smashed in the head or puked on or whatever, it's like, I'll just put this on my wrist.
They could merchandise that, right? Official Resident Evil
aftershave.
Magic water.
Magic juice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ethan's magic juice. No, don't. You can't call it that. Stop. Please. So tell me a little bit about the shoot itself as well, because were there any? So for watching it, I imagine that as we were talking about that kind of that first hour, couple of hours where you're fighting Mia and all this stuff. I imagine that would have been maybe the toughest to act out, but. You tell me, what was that process like? How long did it take as well? I mean, I don't really know how long something like that would take to actually.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically I worked on 7 on and off over the span of 2 years.
Right. Wow.
So you would come in for maybe a week and shoot X amount of scenes. And then a month later, you might come back and just do the ADR for it. There were sometimes it'd be like 3 weeks solid of the motion capture work. So it just was spaced out and went through 2 years because the team was from Capcom in Japan. So when they came in, our director for 7 was from New York. So it was when everybody came into LA where all the actors were, that's when it'd be like, okay, we're going to shoot all this stuff in this time. And everybody stuff would get worked on and then brought back and either reshoots happened or we'd go on to the next scene or a new scene. So it all varied. What's so interesting with motion capture is, that any of the scenes where there's, real dialogue going on, it's just like shooting a movie or something. The biggest difference is you've got to use your imagination even more because you're in a spandex suit covered in little balls And usually you have this giant helmet with a camera stuck in your face, and you're supposed to ignore it's there and still act to this other person who looks the same, like all this crazy stuff on them. So you have to kind of ignore that. And then your whole set, they have the set for you, but it's made out of, boxes and PVC pipes and tennis balls. So you're told, this is a couch, this is a bed, this is the hallway you have to walk through. And you just kind of have to imagine. And they do have, they had pictures for us. Sometimes they actually had some of the game already there. So they would bring it up so we could see, okay, this is what the room is going to look like in the game. So we could have a better idea of, okay, that's like what we're working with. Mm-hmm. But the big fights, a lot of that is done, or at least like for this game. Now, other games, it might be different. But for a lot of our big fights, a lot of it was, we did some of it, and then they were able to loop things, and they were able to then animate. Right. And it wasn't. So, the huge fight where Mia jumps down from the ladder and is coming at him, just going crazy with the chainsaw, that stuff we didn't actually shoot. I didn't leap down from something, and we weren't just going at it with a chainsaw and a gun.
I would love to see that.
It's funny. Yeah. I didn't get to do that. I did get to do the chainsaw, like the scene where I drag it in and chop his hand off. That I really did. So I had a motion capture chainsaw, and I got to lift that up and come down on him while screaming. Brilliant. I got to, screwdriver his hand into the wall, kind of, sort of. Yeah. So some things you do, some you don't, and they can then take those bits and pieces. And I don't fully understand, of course, the animation and the mocap side, but they take all of that and then they can put it in and animate from there. And that's part of motion capture. You learn about what you have to do on the actor's side so that they can loop. So when you're following a character walking forever, I'm not actually walking forever. I do it, but I do it just enough and stop. And then they can go, hey, we can loop it and continue the character to walk.
Right. That makes sense. Keeping it efficient.
Exactly. And then all the idling is the most fun. And that was the first thing I learned about with 7 was, they said in a lot of video games, when you're a character like Mia, where it's more like you're helping the player move along throughout the game, there are those points when the player doesn't want to follow you or is looking around. And then you have a character kind of just chilling, slowly moving, looking around like, come on, just saying weird lines. Yeah. So when I first learned about that, I was like, oh, an actor actually does that. Yeah. So I would on set and I would do my walk, and they're like, okay, take X amount of steps, stop here and do like a Mia idling and kind of look behind, say these lines to get the player to, oh, it's this way,
Yeah.
It should be over here, like stuff like that. So I'd be standing there just doing my little idling, slow move.
Come on, you idiot. Come on, push up.
That's what it feels like, especially when the player just won't come. It's like, what are you doing? Daddy's coming.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I do like the idea. Sometimes with that, it's one of my favorite things with games. It's just those little idle animations in very when it happens sometimes in Call of Duty or whatever, where things are blowing up and everything's crumbling down and you're just standing there. They're like, come on, Sergeant, or whatever. Yeah. Private, move forward. And you're just you've gone out and you can just hear it in the background thinking, oh, fuck. Yeah. Kind of loses a little bit.
It's so cool how they do it. Cause then some games, if the actual fight, sometimes those full fights, stunt people are doing them. So I never saw on our set, I know for 8, there were stunt people who definitely came in, because 8, there's a lot more of that physical fighting, I think. So I know stunt people were brought in for 8. For 7, I never really saw anybody. I don't know if maybe they went back to Japan and used stunt people. I'm not totally sure how that works, but it very well could have, because in a lot of games, they're going to use stunt people. Some people specifically just do motion capture because they also do stunts. So they can do so much more create these characters. So when you see these sword fights or, Call of Duty running around with their guns doing tactical, like those are actors and stunt people diving around and flying through the air.
Not you.
Cool. I want to get that. I've started taking stunt classes. I did when I was much younger, and I was like, you know what, I want to, after doing motion capture, I was like, I want to get back into it. So I started taking action and stunt classes so I can hopefully start to build up back towards that again, which will be really
cool. Yeah, it does sound fun.
Yeah.
Just be careful.
That's number one. I was like, just throw me in a harness and rip me through the air. Like, that just sounds really cool.
Yeah. I want to do the fun, cool stuff. Yeah. That's what I want to do.
Stuff. I mean, come on. You see the behind the scenes of the superhero movies. It's like, I want to be put in that. I want to look like I'm flying through the air like Superman.
Exactly. I'll do that. No, I get it. Yeah, totally. Why not? So who was who directed you on the set, I should say, as well? And how was that in a sense of like other mediums in like, film, TV, theater, whatever? Like how is that quite different?
It's actually not. I mean, the biggest difference was we had a Japanese director and an American director.
Right.
So, you definitely had on Capcom's side, but then there was also Naveed. He was out of New York. He did Grand Theft Auto. So he was brought in. So, I don't know what they worked on together to do things, but it was definitely, Capcom, here's what we want. Here's what we're looking for. Naveed bringing that out, but also, his Grand Theft Auto style and the horror, helping bring that out. And then as the actor, you stood there while everything got translated.
Yeah.
Told to you, you shot it, and then you waited for either a lot of Capcom going, and then talking and then coming back going, okay, try it this way. Right. Or you got the thumbs up and it was like, yes, on to the next scene.
Yeah. It reminds me, was it a bit like, I always think of that scene in Lost in Translation where he speaks for ages and then she's like, okay, turn around slightly. And he's like, is you sure that's all he said? I feel like
it seemed like more.
Yeah.
What's so funny is I worked for Tokyo Disneyland in my youth. So when I was much younger, I lived in Japan for a year working for Disney.
Wow.
And that was my first experience. So my experience there was a lot like Lost in Translation, where talking, and then the translator would be like, so just hold the wand closer to your face.
Yeah.
What was your job?
I was I did characters. I was friends with princess and villains.
Oh.
I was good friends with a bunch of characters.
And then you used,
that sounds lovely.
You used the Disney villainous, and just tied it up to 1,000.
Cranked that up. It helped a lot. But when I came in then for Resident Evil with the Japanese I was really excited because I knew Japanese. So I knew bits and pieces. So I would come in and tell them good morning. And, and there were little things I could say. And they were always kind of like, the first time I said something, they were like, huh? And I explained to them, I was like, oh, I lived in Tokyo for a year. And then I lived in Osaka for a year. And Capcom is out of Osaka. So we had a bunch to talk about.
Nice.
But I wasn't as thrown when we would have those sections of waiting with the translation and then them coming back saying, okay, do it this way, because I was kind of ready for it because of Japan, because of Disney. I'm I had already gone through that confusion of wait, so it sounded like they want a lot more and I don't want to screw up. So what do I need to do? And then I realized they'll talk it's like anybody. I'm trying to get a point across. I'm going to talk a whole bunch, but ultimately it's oh, just do it this way. So it's oh, thank you for just narrowing it down. Here we go. This is what we want. I'm okay, let's do this.
Did you ever push back against that at all? After they've gone through all that planning and process and translation to go, yeah, well, actually, I'm not really feeling that for my character. I don't think she'd do that. I don't think she would go down those stairs. I think she'd hightail it out of there at this point.
Feeling the growl today. I'm more of just softer. She's softer today. No, that would not happen. Plus, what was really great was, even though they knew what they wanted, still within it, they gave us a lot of freedom to, try things, to improv, to work on those demonic sides of our characters.
That's cool.
I think it's very hard if somebody's like, okay, be possessed, crazy, demonic, but say these specific lines in this way. That it's pretty hard. So saying, okay, here's what we're getting across. We want these lines in here, but throw in other things, throw in other vulgarities, throw in, scratching, clawing, growling, like whatever is going to fit and create the whole scene. So they were really, really good with letting us just go for it. And then either, okay, reel it back. No, we really liked that. No, ramp it up even more. So that is what always kind of happened on set. And then even in the booth, when we would do ADR later, it'd be the same thing of, okay, we need to fix these lines, give it to us like 3 different ways. And you do it, and they'd either say, yeah, that worked, or, can you do it even more this way? Mm-hmm. And so what was crazy for 7 was when I had my, ADR sessions, it would either be, okay, today's normal Mia doing ADR or doing efforts. And then the next day was like, okay, this is crazy Mia doing efforts and ADR. So it's like I had like my 2 personalities were always having to have their day.
Yeah. Did you have any routine for getting into the mindset for those days?
I actually not like the possessed one came out so easily. Possessed Mia was very easy to get into because it was just so fun. Mm-hmm. It was just so fun to be scary and to freak people out when I started screaming or growling or whatever it was. Normal Mia was a little bit more like, okay, how do I balance the softness, the sweetness, but also then the confusion? So normal Mia was a little bit harder for in 7. But what was nice is, normal Mia was never really normal. She was always very confused, sad, freaking out, got to get out of here, fighting. So, and most of my scenes would switch from one to the other. And we didn't do separate takes. It was like, no, this is the scene we're shooting. I'm going from normal to crazy. So here we go. Like, let's just do it, which I'm glad, because I think if it would have been like, okay, we're going to start here, cut, and then we're going to start with crazy, like, I don't think it would have had the same effect of just the build of like the scariness of like, Ethan, it's okay. It's okay. I know you didn't mean to hurt me. And then it just grows to terrifying.
Yeah. Starting at 100, I can imagine it would be very, very difficult. Were there any was there any bits or scenes that you enjoyed? Like, it sounds like the chainsaw bit and the stabbing in the hand was probably the most enjoyable bit for you. Was there anything where you were like, oh, I just want to get this scene done, or you were not looking forward to, or anything like that?
The only scene I had a hard time with, and it was partially my fault, the scene where Mia switches over. She was crazy fighting him and then steps back. She fades into normal and she starts talking about how she can hear her in her head and she just wants it out. She starts banging her head against the wall. Having that switch of talking about wanting this voice out of my head, took me some time to figure out how I wanted it to come off without it just being weird and feeling very unnatural. So that took me a little time of working through. But then also, there was a wall with cushion or something that was built with like padding on it. And that's what I would hit. And, you don't actually hit it that hard. You flail and you only hit so hard. But one of the times I did it, I still put myself into it a good amount. I don't hurt myself, but like I still flail a lot. So doing that scene was always tiring because I would do it and then I had to collapse onto the ground. Yeah. So that was always very tiring. And one of the times, because I fell to the ground on my back, we had to take all of my mic packs and Velcro them to my front because I was going to land on my back and we didn't want me landing on them. So I had like, a whole bunch of stuff Velcroed on my front that's usually on my back. So as I was flailing, one of the mic packs on the last big hit pulled off the Velcro and flung up into my face.
Ouch.
Sorry.
Cracked me. I laugh at it. Like, it just cracked me in the mouth. So I fell down and it's like hanging there. And then like I get up and realize like I have a bloody lip.
Oh no.
It wasn't horrible, but I definitely kind of felt like the asshole because I was like, I can't believe I just did that. Luckily, they were like, okay, like they liked it. It was good. Luckily, the Velcro, the sound wasn't on, or at least in the time, they thought it was okay. Left, thought we were done with that scene. And then like maybe a month later when we went back for the next round of shooting, the first thing we started with was, oh, we got to do that scene again. Right. And I was no.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Can't wait.
Need extra danger money.
Yeah, they're like you could hear the Velcro and you know, however they were shooting it, they were like they had to readjust it. So in my mind, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me.
Please. It's actually quite difficult to watch that scene for that bit. That's what I quite love about the game generally is that, and as you were saying, like with the knife and kitchen as well, is that it's really uncomfortable in that you think it's gonna maybe do, like, how far do you think it's gonna push it? Because it kind of teases. And then, you know, when you start banging your head, it's like, that's just horrible. And then it's like you knock yourself out. And there's these weird, like, uncomfortable moments.
Because it's almost like if you've ever, you know, you see in movies when somebody's getting mad at themselves and they start injuring themselves and the other person's like, oh my God, what's happening? And they're like grabbing them like, no, stop hitting your head. Like, or if somebody starts hitting themselves and you're just like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And that's what that scene brings out. And Ethan, he was just attacked. So he's not going to run up to her like, stop hitting yourself. He's kind of like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're watching this woman just flail into a wall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, and then he, you know, almost chops your head off with an axe. Not too long. Like I said,
a lot of marriage counseling probably happened in between the time of 7 and 8.
Yes. And surely I always think
a lot of stuff they had to work through. I want to see that DLC. Yeah. Ethan in marriage counseling.
You know what? I want to see like something through like halfway, like in like a year later or something. It's just Ethan like coming to bed, and she's just, and Mia's just like laying there. This is if it's gonna sound weird, which it's not, but Mia's just laying there asleep. But it's like midnight or something, and he's just like staring at her, looking at her, just being like, do I still trust her? Because like, how do you go from that afterwards? These like, okay, cool, now we're going to play Happy Families and it's all going to be nice. You'd still be like, she could still be like, she could turn on me at any second.
Obviously, like the split person, like something was taking control of her that she was constantly fighting against. And unlike most of the Bakers, she was able to fight a little bit more against it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're like, so is it out of her? Is it not? And technically, like, he gave her the cure. So it should be out of her. You know, you don't, after she gets the cure, you don't see Mia in that way. So
still sleep with one eye open.
Yeah, exactly. You should see one eye open.
And if you didn't, shame on you.
Yeah,
shame.
Exactly. Yeah, I found it. Yeah, so there's one bit in the game which I guess we'll come to later, which is like you can either choose Zoe, who seems to be unaffected, and it's kind of explained in a DLC, but unaffected by this crazy mold stuff that's been infecting everyone, or Mia, who's your wife, and then it's like, who are you going to give it to? I remember like with the choice thing, thinking like,
chopped your hand off, like when they told me that was happening, like when I read that scene, my initial reaction was, no one is going to choose Mia. She is
really?
psychotic. Oh, I didn't think she was likable. I was really worried because the hardest thing I had to do for myself in 7 was to find a way to make this character likable. Right. Or at least empathetic to like, okay, yeah, she did something wrong, but like everything she's doing, she's not doing. Like something making her do this. So I had to find that balance. And I know there are people out there that still hate me. Think she is the reason for all of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Get it? But I do have to say, we got to blame the corporation, not the people. It's Umbrella, it's BSAA. Like, they're the ones who did all of this. And, then it trickles down. And it's just that thing of Mia was trying. So it's like I had to bring that out. I had to make a very, what I thought was a very unlikable character somewhat likable. That people did get to that point and hopefully chose her. But I initially was just like, how are we going to do this? Like, she literally chopped his hand off. Yeah. She's been stabbing him. She's fighting him. Like, she's not her normal self, obviously. And this other woman, literally all she's done is help Ethan. Tell him where to go, tell him what to get to make the cure. Like,
yeah. Well, it worked because I remember going into that when I was playing it, going completely opposite. Like, this Zoe woman, like, who is this Zoe woman? Why would I save her over my? I mean, maybe I put myself too much into this character's shoes, but like, this is my wife.
Supposed to, like, that's the whole point. Ethan in 8, Ethan becomes a more rounded character, whereas in 7, because of VR, you didn't want Ethan to have too much because then the players wouldn't feel like they are Ethan. Like, that was the point of 7. The player should feel like they are Ethan. They are the ones fighting. They are the ones searching for their wife. And especially when you play it in VR, you really feel like it is you in that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think they did a phenomenal job creating that for the players, being like, no, you are literally in the game. You are in the game right now. And then in 8, since it's not VR, they were able to give Ethan give more personality, give more for him to do and be, which I love because I'm seeing so much love for Ethan in 8. Whereas in 7, people were like, he was like, he was, just this like boring dude. And it's like, well, that's the point because it's supposed to be you. You're supposed to fill in.
You're boring.
Yeah, exactly. They're criticizing themselves. Yeah. They brought nothing to the table.
It's like, come on, step it up. Step it up.
Come on, guys. Well, let's talk about the VR thing for a bit. So I played the whole thing in VR, which was bold, to be brutally honest. And I have never, there comes a time, but I felt like when I did Resident Evil 7 in VR, that was a real turning point for me because for many reasons. One, I'd never had a gaming experience like it ever. And I've been playing games since I was a small child. So I was like, it's the first time that I was like, VR's like works. Like, I've done some of the PS VR stuff, but when it came out and whatever and all that, which is great. But Resident Evil 7 having a fully fledged, actual, like, decent game was great. 2, I don't get scared easily. Like, I find it very hard to be in a situation where I'm actually scared. Resident Evil 7 in VR absolutely did that massively. And I remember, just as a case in point, is that I remember that whole intro bit that we just talked about when you're walking up to the house, and then something very simple, very, very simple, is that when you go to the house, you open a door. That's it. You just walk through and you push open a door and you're going inside. Now, when I played it, I opened that door so slowly to go inside, and I was just like, I don't know what the fuck's going to be behind it, and I really was like freaking out. And then cut to I basically took it to my mate's house. He didn't have VR, but he wanted to play it. And he was just like doing the classic kind of like, he just went through. And I was like, mate, you just took 3 minutes probably to get to that point. And that took me about 20, just because I was so careful about absolutely everything. But obviously he's just like, you're playing it how you normally play it. You're just like going through like whatever. Made such a massive difference. And I think like I could only play it, I don't know about you, but I can only play it, I would say, in about half-hour stints, if that. Because for one thing, I was just like my heart rate would go up immensely. I would really start because obviously, like when you've got the VR unit on anyway, it gets hot. So it can get hot and it gets a bit sweaty anyway. But that mixed with, and I used to have to do it with my wife, like next to me, just to be like, I was like, okay, now don't touch me for a start. Like, like if you need something, you're just gonna have to deal with it unless the house is on fire. Like, don't start tapping away at me or anything because you're gonna make me jump.
Sure, fine.
Yeah, exactly. Please don't.
you're just so engulfed, like between the headset and then the headphones. I mean, you are truly immersed into the world. The first time I did it, I actually didn't realize I had played for 2 hours. Like I put everything on and the sun was out and my friends were over. We were like, let's just witness this. This will be hysterical. And by the time I took it off, it was 2 hours later. It was dark. I was like, what just happened? Where did the time go? But by the 2 hour mark, I realized like my head, it was very, it's disorienting to the point where in the middle of me playing it, my husband and my friends had to put like a yoga mat on the ground. So I had a better idea of where I needed to stay because I was moving so much. And they're like, she's going to break herself. I guess they had a video of me and I think I'm facing the TV still with the game, but I was fully turned around. TV, I'm facing my friends just like freaking out. I just hear laughing and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm sure you guys are having a great time.
What I'm hearing from Sam as well is outrageous because he's a total sadist. He forced me to play it for about 2 hours.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Oh, no, it's so fun. Like, I'm very excited. So I just officially yesterday bought a PlayStation 4 VR bundle. I just started a Twitch account because I've been promising people that I'm going to get on it. But the plan, fingers crossed that everything works correctly. But the plan is to do my first stream with VR RE7.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'm super excited. I will be messing around with that for the next couple of days to figure out how to get the VR to link up to the Twitch and everything. But I am so excited because I found it funny to watch people, like, basically a camera on me with this headset on. So I just look like a total ass. Why not? I mean, I had to on set most of the time anyway.
Yeah. I'm imagining that it's like you're not even going to be in the webcam frame or whatever. You'll be like on another part that you've just disorientated yourself enough, or you've just wandered off.
We're gonna have to put down like a little like mat area so I know if I've wandered out of frame. Be like, oh no, gotta shift back to the left. Yeah. But we have some other RE8 actors, like we all kind of hang out. So and RE7 actors. So we plan on kind of doing a maybe group thing where, because it is very hard to wear the VR for very long. So we might be like rotating. So one can be commenting on what's going on in the Twitch while the other one's in the actual VR just trying to play.
Yeah. It's a shame Resident Evil 8 wasn't in VR. I was really bummed that it wasn't. I know like there's probably decisions made or whatever and all that. But I
was curious about that because when they first came to me saying, hey, Resident Evil 8 is going to start working on and Mia's still alive. So when they first told me that, I kind of assumed it would be in VR just because of 7. But they never actually told us that. And then actually doing the filming, for me, it felt different because 7, we had to do so many things, so many different ways, so many reshoots. And that was all because of VR. It was, we had to very specifically shoot things knowing this will be in VR. Whereas 8, any of my scenes never felt like that. So I started being like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be in VR. And then it came out and it wasn't, which I was a little bummed only because the VR is pretty amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, it was like this, 8 becomes a very different, almost dark fairy tale world that it's in, which is kind of cool. So, it's like you get this fun balance. And what I loved about, 7 went back to horror, 8 kept the horror, but then also brought in that shoot 'em up that happened in like 4, 5, and 6 that people liked. So 8 kind of was this, I feel like maybe balance of the horror and that first person shoot 'em up kind of thing where they were trying to meld them together. So I thought that was cool because then it opened it up to a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, you'll know more about it than I will, but yeah, I felt like because they said like 7 was very self-contained almost, like you've got basically the house and the ship really. And there's some other little bits, but that's kind of it. Whereas with this, I think maybe the fact they've made it a lot bigger and expansive, they were probably just like, we probably can't do it in VR. I don't know.
But it's so great for the players because it's like there are so many different houses. You get to explore the whole region. There's just so many more characters. 8, which I think is really cool. So it took 7 and just kind of blew it up world-wise, which was so cool. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. I've definitely, it's on my, I'm one of those people, those gamers who will buy games day one and then they'll sit on the backlog. It's like whilst I'm still trying to get other stuff done, and then I'm just like, they go down in price. I'm like, why did I do it? Why did I need to buy it with day one? Ridiculous.
Well, that's why I said I would start with 7, then I'll go to 8, and then the plan is to backtrack and start with original RE when I was a kid. So my Twitch plan, once I figure out how to work all of it, that plan is going to be 7, 8, and then backtrack and stick with all of the Resident Evils. And then once I finish all those, go on to other games and whatnot. But that's kind of my hope, because I mean, I remember being in grade school. I was in 8th grade when Resident Evil first came out.
Right.
And just like, you know, it was just such a, because I played Doom on my parents' actual computer, like the desktop computer.
Yeah, PC.
Like I remember playing Doom and how scary and creepy it was, and then Resident Evil came out and gave a very similar vibe. But then after that, like I was never really, my family was never really big into gaming and stuff. So I remember playing it at friends' houses, but I never had it. So when people ask me like, oh, were you always a big fan? I'm like, I knew of it, but I just didn't grow up in a big gaming family. And now it's like, now that I've been in games, I'm like, oh my God, I now have gaming stuff. I'm on Twitch. Like, I don't even know if you talked to anybody from my college, they'd be like, yeah, Katie would never do that. Katie would never do that. And I'm like, no,
she's too cool for that. And you're like, no, I'm not.
Cool. I just have such a temper and I get frustrated very easily.
Yeah.
So it could be quite explosive and entertaining, your Twitch streams.
It's definitely going to be. Definitely follow my Twitch, twitch.tv/KDOAX, because it's going to be quite humorous. I might have to rate it mature because I cannot trust what will come out of my mouth while I'm. That is for sure.
I think it could be cool as well, watching someone, I think, playing Resident Evil 7 in VR, because it'll be kind of like watching a horror movie as opposed to living a horror movie, which was maybe, like for me, it was a little intense. Because I'm like a stalwart horror fan. But
did you actually get through all of 7 in VR? Like you played it and got through it, or you just started it?
No, well, I actually played it at Sam's house. So at the time, we were in a band together, and I thought I was going around for a songwriting session, maybe a catch up, chill out. And he's like, "You got to play this game." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds good." And he's like, "You got to put this on." And I was like, hang on."
Or he just like threw you into it.
Yeah, that wasn't the VR unit. That was. He's talking about something else.
He put the VR helmet on my head.
Yes.
And he wouldn't let me leave for about 2 hours. And the whole time, he said it took him 20 minutes to get through the door. I was like, do I really need to go in this house? He's like, yeah, get on with it. Get through the door. I'm like, every fiber of my being is telling me to turn around, get in that car, drive away. Like, there should be an alternative storyline where you choose to just go on a nice countryside drive.
Yeah, just look at the swamp, but keep going.
In the bay. I vaguely remember Dan going, like, so what's going on here? Just get on with it, Dan. Just go through. But why am I here? What? Just go. Come on.
I don't want to go through that door. It's scary. I genuinely, like you said, your heart rate was going down. I was it's nerve shredding.
Yes,
the anxiety. But like the payoffs are really cool, aren't they?
Yeah. It took me 2 hours just to get to where Mia is crawling up the stairs.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
pretty much.
Well, it takes them 20 minutes to get to that point. It took me 2 hours to get to that point.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty much where I got to.
Yeah. Well, then it also was I got to that point. I remembered shooting the scene. I heard the voices. You see me coming, and then I stepped away, and then all of a sudden it goes black. And I was like, at first I thought I hit a wrong button because, again, I don't know what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, Mia pops up in your face and is all creepy and squirrely and making those noises. And oh my God, I did all of this. I screamed so loud, and I threw the remote control and I fell to the ground. And I started yelling, "Stop hitting me! Stop it! No, stop!" And I didn't have a remote anymore, so I couldn't stop it. I couldn't fight her off. Like, my friend had to literally like come over, touch me, and like hand me the remote again so I could attempt to stop the game.
That must be such a strange sensation. A manifestation of yourself is attacking you.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember shooting the scene and then having it happen to me. It was such a mind fuck. Like,
wow.
Oh my God, what is happening? I just kept saying, I was like, "Stop hitting me! Stop hitting me!"
Stop hitting yourself. Is it like, I imagine that that must have been what Jeff Bridges felt like in Tron Legacy when if anyone's seen it, when he met Clue or whatever, saw himself
staring at someone who doesn't look like you, but everything else is you. It's like your voice, your mannerisms, your tics, all right here, just on another woman's face. Like,
yeah, I can't imagine that.
It's so cool, but terrifying in VR. Terrifying.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm going to do it on my Twitch, because it will also be hysterical.
Yeah, I bet.
We'll have paramedics on standby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're going to have to put pillows up, so in case I throw things, it's not going to break the TV. Like,
maybe you should just have a padded room, literally, like give mental people like, okay, I'm safe in here now.
Might have to. We'll see how much of the game I can play standing up versus I have a giant beanbag chair. It might end up me going after a couple of rounds of, okay, I have to sit in this chair and play because I'm a danger to myself if I don't.
Yeah, I bet. So I guess like starting from the top. So what interested me about the very start of it is that, did you ever play Silent Hill 2?
No. But everybody compares.
Yeah, compares them. Now, Silent Hill 2 is probably, if not my favorite game of all time, it's definitely top 5, I would say. But the whole premise of how that starts is the main character, gets a letter from his dead wife saying to go back to Silent Hill. So, which is exactly how, and he's in the car and all this stuff, and he's kind of remembering the conversation, whatever, and all this stuff. That's how Silent Hill 2 starts. And what I love about Resident Evil 7 is that throughout, and I think Capcom have said this, the directors, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is that they have picked influences from like horror films and other games and stuff like that, which I felt like came through. And I thought that was a nice little nod maybe to Silent Hill 2, which is great. And also like going around the house itself reminded me a bit of PT, which was the Kojima demo that came out that you can't get anymore, which was like that. It's kind of a similar layout as well, like it's a bit of a square. Even though like the Baker house has all the bits and pieces, the main layout feels a bit squarish, and then it's got all when I think of the beginning of it anyway. So as we said, you basically, you're looking for Mia, who has disappeared, and you thought she was dead, but now she's back. As you kind of venture up to the house, you see, as we said, like the old film crew, and that's one of the cool gameplay mechanics, is that you find the videotapes and you can watch them, and then you can interact. So you're watching it first person, but stuff that you do in it affects what happens in the real world, which is quite a nice little, almost supernatural, I guess.
Like
twist. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, which is cool. But it's also like, as you're watching it, it's all like grainy and fucked up as well. So it's like just that found footage aesthetic thing. They've really leaned into it with that. which I thought was cool. And then, Mia is basically the first boss, basically, pretty much. She's stabbing you, she said, stabbing you in the hand. There's a lot of jump scares, which we've established. There's quite a few of those, which in VR is fucking horrible, but in the best possible way. Yeah, well, definitely well worth it.
Exhilarating.
Definitely exhilarating. And there's a lot of there's that horror trope of like, there's the body's there, and then you go and do something else, you come back and it's gone. It's like, fuck, where is it? And you're following the blood trails and all this. And then basically you kind of kill Mia with an axe. At least she looks pretty dead at that point.
An axe to the neck, you would hope, but
axe to the neck.
It is Resident Evil.
Exactly. You signed up to this if you bought this game. You know what you're getting. And then after another fight with her, she chops off your hand with a chainsaw. And then you have that chainsaw fight, which in VR was so difficult. It took me ages to get it because I just could not aim. I couldn't get the aim straight. It was driving me absolutely insane. And also, as with all survivor horrors, your ammo is very scarce. So, so I was like, screwed. Like, if I didn't get it in like the first few shots, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Damn it. But the end, later on down the line with the game, the ammo does start to be a bit more plentiful, and you start getting like the Resident Evil do, but survival horrors do, where you get like grenade launchers and flamethrowers, and you can mix chemicals, which is a Resident Evil thing. And you've also got the inventory management, so you can only carry so much and take stuff with you, which is cool. So there's always that kind of anxiety where it's like, you come across something, you pick it up, you're like, fuck, I can't carry it because I haven't got enough space. What do I do? Have to use something, or do I drop something? And all this stuff. So
when you needed it.
yeah, exactly. Damn it. And then after a little while, you meet the Baker family, and you meet them by like waking up Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, tied onto a chair. You've got this old woman in a wheelchair who reminds me of the granddad in Texas Chainsaw. You've got the young kid. Is it Lucas? I've forgotten his name.
Yeah.
Lucas. Yeah. You've got Jack, the dad, and you've got Marguerite, the mum. And there's this like all this horrific, like awful style, like you're not sure what meat it is or anything. Dan, what are you now? Vegan? I can't remember.
Vegan.
Okay.
You wouldn't like that dinner. You definitely wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
It's okay though, because it all appears to be sort of like human.
I think it's a lot of bugs, a lot of human and bugs, possibly.
Yeah.
Rotted meat. It seems like.
Yeah. A lot of
it's very
grey.
It's very grim. It's extremely grim.
Yeah. A lot of grey matter. But what I also loved is that they're all like infighting as well and shouting at each other, which I always loved about Texas Chainsaw is the fact it's like. Yeah. You're watching the family dynamic. It's not just all about you. They're kind of getting on with their life whilst you're sitting there. You just like happen to be there, which is quite nice.
Well, it's even scarier, isn't it? Because a bit like in that scene in the film, you kind of realise you don't matter. You're just a piece of meat in the room.
Like you so badly want to tiptoe out of the room, but you're stuck there.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got Jack like pointing knives in your face. There's a lot of these like VR moments, which is like everything's kind of in your face and, very immediate, which might not work as well if you play normally as to how it looks in VR, which is absolutely terrifying for sure. And then they all kind of saunter off, and then you're kind of left to kind of escape the house. And this is what's cool is that Jack is kind of one of the kind of best kind of Resident Evil villains. Like, so you've got like Nemesis, Mr. X from the previous Resident Evil titles, where it's this like figure that's just like stalking you. So he comes crashing through walls, he busts doors open or whatever, and you've got to kind of hide from him. And what I also love is that the game gives you like a little bit of hope, and then it's like one step forward and two steps back. So like you see a cop, and the cop's like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "Fucking hell, thank God, it's a cop here." And then like 10 minutes later, he gets a spade through his head. And then you've got the first of many Jack boss battles. And it's this cool bit where he's kind of having fun with you. And that's what I quite like about it, is that he's very threatening, but also there's like a hilarity, there's a comedy skew to it as well.
Yeah, it's like he's just messing with you the whole time. Like, it's so creepy because it is got that comedy in it. Like, they did such a great balance with it.
Yeah, definitely. I was astounded that it was like they've really leaned into this. They've really made him like an interesting, weird, crazy, psycho character. And the fact that he can't die, like, he totally takes advantage of it. Basically, like, he shoots himself in the head, and his entire head just like blows up. And then he keeps coming back just the same. But that bit's really cool. And then you find a tape with Mia on it, which is where you're hiding from Marguerite, right? And that's like a proper like stealth section. And I guess, like, as you were saying, like, the cool thing about Mia as well is that she's not like a damsel in distress, really. Like, the kind of start of it might feel like it might be going in that direction, but the fact that she becomes an immediate threat for a start, and then later on you find out that she's actually more, let's say, she's more used to all this stuff than Ethan is by like a mile. That, you know, really it should be the other way around. Yeah, exactly. She would really be saving him. But yeah, I quite liked that. And yeah, this kind of stealth section is quite neat because it's also, you start seeing like the little outhouse bit, and which comes into play later. And it's cool how they kind of tease things that are kind of coming into the future, like quite early. And yeah, you hide from Marguerite, and then you start making your way through the house more, and you bump into the new enemies, which are like the molded, which are basically these big black, like slimy creatures, which are made up of this weird black mold that you start seeing everywhere, which is actually that's the infection, right? That's the kind of result of all these experiments. Is that right?
Well, the molded, for the most part, are actually, they were people who
right. There were people
so infected. And that's what you see kind of at the end of the game. You realize that the molded were people, and
right.
It was taken over and they weren't able to fight it, and they become these creatures.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And yeah, there's that black mold itself, that's what they've been creating, I guess. Oh, I don't know. But that's part of it anyway. It's all part of this like weird infection thing. And yeah, those molded, they just eat up your ammo. I remember thinking that at the time. It's just like these things
go down.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, exactly. They're not easy. They're like bullet sponges. And then you start getting little hints at the story of the sense that it's like you're now being molded, I guess, to be like the father and Mia like the mother, but you're not really sure. They keep talking about her and she, and as you said, it's like she's in my mind, and you're not really sure who that is or what's kind of going on with that. But yeah, you get the sense that Jack hates you. he's on a mission to get rid of you. And then you have this really cool chainsaw fight with him, which is really visceral. Like, if you think about a chainsaw fight in this pit of like bodies hanging from above and all this, which is really great. And what I also loved is that even when he gets like regrown, he's got the same like facial hair and like male pattern baldness.
Like, that. You got to hold on to what makes you. So
he's kept the same beard line. It's all just, you know, genetically, it's in like literally perfect, molecularly perfect, pure recreation. It's just weird. And even when like you kill him, I remember there's that bit where his leg, you chop him in half or whatever, or kill him basically, and then his legs get back up and start walking, and then fall back down. And it's just like,
comedy that's thrown in. I mean, it's disturbing comedy, but it's still funny.
Yeah, exactly. And there's loads of these elements, and there's one bit where you have to like grab a key from the neck of the cop or whatever. You have to put your hand down. His head's been chopped off. You have to put his hand down his throat to grab the key and pull it out. Great. It's all stuff like that, which is really like, it's a bit playful in the fact that it's so horribly gory. So basically you've been told you've got to find this serum to kind of get this cure going. And from this, you need a head and an arm of the Series D or something that's like around, that's been washed up, I guess, from the ship. So yeah, you got to get this and it'll help you make the serum. So you go to to Marguerite's basically at this point. She's like the next boss that you're going up to. And I always found this bit the most annoying bit because you've got the mosquitoes and there's the poison and all this stuff. And in VR, that's just fucking, I just remember being like, this is impossible. I can't get these things. I can't get them. I don't know. And then you have like a flamethrower at this point, which makes it a bit easier, but the ammo is scarce. It's really tough to get right. And Marguerite here has now turned into this like weird spider-like creature. And she looks, this for me in VR was probably, really creepy, really tough, like to actually do, but also just, it was messed up. And it reminded me of the ending of Wreck. Do you remember Wreck? I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think, Dan, you might have seen it.
No, what's that?
So Wreck, they remade it in America.
The film.
Yeah, but Wreck, Wreck, it was a Spanish, Wreck is one of the best found footage films of all time.
Short for record, right?
Yeah,
like
record.
VCR.
Yeah. So they, REC. So it's a Spanish thing. It takes place in a block of flats. Basically, it starts out with this woman's like, I'm making a documentary on the fire department. Okay, we're going to go out to call. And then anyway, they're like, it's all like a zombified block of flats. But
the woman Dexter is.
That's right. She was in the American one. That's right. Yeah.
I do know. Okay.
Yeah. So and they did the same thing with this end scene, but I think the Spanish one probably did it better. And I think maybe because I saw that first, so it had more of a initial shock. But when they get to the top, go on.
It reminds me of Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, where his mother at the end of the film kind of mutates into this huge giant, just I don't know what the hell she is. Have you seen that, Katie? You're nodding. Like
I know I haven't seen it, but I had heard about that one because I'm a big horror fan, so I always like finding new ones. And my October, I try to watch as many ones I haven't seen, so I always have my list of what to say. So I'll have to add that.
Brain Dead's a comedy,
gross splatter comedy. Yeah.
Comedy horror. But yeah, exactly, even better. But yeah, the end of Wreck, it's like it's the night vision thing, and this was kind of the first film to do this like properly. And there's this like a weird creature in the background. It's got, you can't really see it, probably it's got elongated limbs. And anyway, basically it looks like how Marguerite looks here, which is like long, weird limbs, ridiculously tall. Yeah, exactly, like all like fucked up and all this stuff. And yeah, as I said before, she's got this like bug vagina or something that's kind of spelling out mosquitoes and all that's really weird. And she's climbing up the walls and all that stuff.
Like you can't let them lay eggs in places because then
that's right.
It's so creepy.
Yeah, it's really creepy and really gross, but it's a great boss fight. So you kill her and then you move on to Lucas. And Lucas is cool because he's got his own thing, which is basically pranks, which is like tricks and like traps.
Puzzles.
Yeah, and puzzles and all this. And it wouldn't be Resident Evil without the puzzles. So he's done it in like the set of like a theme park almost, and kind of got these little games for you to play. But he's kind of like the younger Texas Chainsaw Massacre brother thing, like a bit of a doofus, a bit of a idiot, but which doesn't really make sense, I suppose, because he's made all these intricate kind of escape rooms.
It's like he's that psychotic. It's not so much a doofus. He's just that psychotic.
Yeah.
This isn't Home Alone we're talking about here. It's something transformed into.
It's close. This is what Kevin grew up to be.
Even if he wasn't infected, he was still this psychotic.
Yeah.
Like that's how I read Lucas as. He seems like he has always been this crazy, this psychotic, and part of everything from the get-go. Because during that time where you do meet Lucas, you find that he's been talking to someone, and you're just like, wait a minute, like what's this? Who's this? Why is he in cahoots with someone outside? So
that's true. Yeah, he's the most kind of like normal out of them. Like he doesn't act as messed up in a horror sense as the others. He seems almost, as you said, like just a bit more of a normal psycho that happens to regenerate himself.
It doesn't feel like he's doing this because he's infected.
Yeah.
Feels like he's doing it for fun, which makes it so much scarier.
It's so much weirder. Oh, you guys are infected? Oh, right. I thought we were just doing this train now.
Same page. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I thought we're just eating offal now. That's fine. I'm eating humans. That felt like the natural next step. Why not? But yeah, you see, like he has another video of like an escape room in a sense of putting lighting a birthday cake, which turns out to be a bomb, and he sets the room on fire, etc. That stuff's really cool. You kind of got a bit of a boss fight in there with some huge kind of slob monster who vomits on you, which is a bit of a classic kind of Resident Evil type boss. But that's kind of done like it's a game show, which is quite, again, kind of like that weird humor aspect to it again, which is really cool. And then, so then you find Mia again and Zoe, and she's like, oh, I'm going to make the serum from these things that you've got given me, thanks. But then Jack comes back and he's now this like huge, massive monster, and you got to shoot him in the glowing bits, kind of like classic kind of boss monster thing. And then you inject him with the serum, which means you only get one left. And then you basically have to choose Mia or Zoe. I think canon for Resident Evil Village to work, canon is that you've injected Mia. I don't think, I think if you've injected Zoe, they kind of forget about that. And I never did that. I don't know. There must be a different ending and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. But yeah, I find it weird if you didn't infect Mia. But as you said, you know, she has tried to kill you like about 1 million times by now. So it wouldn't really surprise me.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go off on a boat and you escape, but then you come across the big ship that you find out that Mia was actually on. And then Ethan basically gets taken by the black slimy stuff and the mold. And then you're Mia and you start exploring the ship. And this is where you start seeing a little girl and all these kind of bits start falling into place. And basically you have a flashback where this little girl was basically an experiment. And it's all gone a bit wrong, but you were supposed to, Mia, I say Mia, Mia and her partner were supposed to be acting as parents whilst they had this little girl on board. But it's all gone wrong. But now you get a machine gun, which is like, thank God by this point of the game, I need that. And you start going through killing some molded. Your partner dies. You start finding out that this little girl is like, wants Mia to be her mum. She wants to have like a family unit. And then you basically blow up the ship. The ship explodes, right? And you kind of fly off into the sea. And then, so the story is, and this happens in the DLC, is that Jack found the little girl and you and brought you guys back. And then that's when she started infecting the house and everyone. Meanwhile, on the ship, you find Ethan in the slime. And I guess it's him getting turned into like a molded thing at that point. And he has this little like flash of like the Baker family, like normal, like basically being like, we're actually a decent family. Can you save us from this creature? Which I thought was quite nice. So then you become Ethan again and you go into the mines where that's where the experiments took place. Is that right? You start finding all this, I remember you start finding documents and videos and pictures.
You do find that stuff, but that is, all the experiments and everything, that was done on the ship.
Right.
And that mine, I think, is more Lucas related. And that's when you realize Lucas was in contact with somebody and you realize there's some sort of bigger story. There's something more to the story. And that's when you're realizing, like, you know, Evelyn, this little girl, is basically a bioweapon. She's not a little girl, like she's a bioweapon. You start seeing all these things of like how long Mia's been involved, taking care of her, and the names of people. And that's when I believe you start finding little instances of names you may recognize from past games.
Right. All the references.
It's all these little tiny things that, you know, they feed in there during that event. But I think for the most part, like any of the experiments, any of that stuff was all done on the ship, and then of course went terribly wrong, like it always does. Resident Evil.
They never learn. Thank God you're here, Katie, because I would have got that. I was thinking there's definitely a mine. There's definitely a mine, and there's definitely some documents. But then you find your way. And I think the idea, right, is that she can control armies and all this stuff, this infected thing, being able to control people and control the enemy, as you said, like using her as a bioweapon.
Like she is this mold, so she's this bioweapon, and I don't really remember like how she makes people the mold, but basically she infects them and then she can control them. But also it's the idea that anybody who is molded are connected. So that's why when Ethan was in that mold, he was seeing visions of the Bakers.
Right. Yeah.
They were normal because anybody who has been affected, anybody within the molded universe or idea, like they are all connected now as a family. That's this whole idea. It really is this whole idea. And 7 and 8 both feed into the same idea of it's all about family.
Yeah.
Evelyn just wants family. So she uses the mold to literally create her family. Like, let me pull everybody in I want. Let me control everyone. And some people can fight it more than other people. So the ones who are fully molded, you know, aren't able to fight it enough. Mia, Zoe, they are able to try to fight it a little bit more because they have a better understanding. So you kind of get that push and pull. But yeah, this little child is basically not a child, just a weapon of just mass destruction. Yeah.
Perfectly put. And I guess that kind of comes into the end where she's not a little girl. It's all been a hallucination. So you kind of make your way back to the house, basically, and you start having like more visions and all this, and the little girl, and you've got the serum, and she's like, "Oh no, keep it away from me." And then you find out that the old woman who's been around, not only was she at the dinner scene near the beginning, but as you've been walking around the house, solving puzzles, unlocking doors, she's been in the corner, she's been watching you, and she's just been around. She's the young girl, and she's aged like a ridiculous rate, basically. And now she's like super old. But she still projects herself as a little girl, which is really interesting. And then basically she's like, why does everyone hate me? Like having like a kind of teenage strop almost. And
she just wants family.
She just wants the family. She just needs, you said, just wants that connection. And she just turns into a massive, huge monster that you have to fight, which is the final boss.
13-year-old girl or 13-year-old girl.
Exactly, yeah. She hung out in the upstairs room. She's taken over the whole house slowly, and she's this huge monster that will ruin your house. And then so you have this kind of final fight, and you get essentially saved by Umbrella, and that's when Chris Redfield comes out, and you're like, and everyone's like, Chris Redfield, like that's a character from Resident Evil that we've been playing and know about. And then that is basically the end of the game. So it's quite a journey, as you said. And yeah, it's cool. You can like upgrade your weapons as you go through with like coins in a really weird way. Like you put them in almost like you buy them basically, like almost in these weird little bird cages, which is cool. And then there is some DLC. I'll kind of talk about that briefly. You've got the Not Hero DLC, which is Chris Redfield. It's a bit more action orientated. You're kind of going through shooting the monsters, basically. You've got End of Zoe, which is quite nice because that's kind of like it gives a happy ending to Zoe, who canon-wise you left like to die. And he's like, I'll bring help. And she's like, there'll be no one here left to help. You fuck. You've left me here to die. Like, thanks. But the idea is that Jack's brother, Joe, who ends up with like a metal hand, like as Solid Snake style, not Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid 5, whichever snake that was. God, I got myself confused. Jesus, got confused all the snakes. He has a Japanese like hand thing, and he is Jack's brother. He fights Jack, who has survived. And then at the end of the day, Umbrella come in and it's Chris Redfield again. And he's like, oh, we saved you. And then you find out that Ethan said to Umbrella, you got to go help Zoe. She's back there and sort her out. So that's quite nice because that puts a little bow on that as well. Like Zoe just wasn't left to die in case anyone, had a heart when they were playing that. And then you've got the band footage DLCs, which are basically these cool little vignettes where it's like, you've got like escape room style mini games with Lucas and Marguerite. And the Marguerite one is quite cool because she keeps coming in and out, and you've got to, like, when you start hearing her coming, you've got to get back into the bed and do all your chains up before she comes through the door. Otherwise she'll be like, what the fuck are you doing? And she'll kill you, basically. That is really cool. I've loved doing that one. It was really good. And there's also the bit which is the kind of prequel bit, which is showing how Evelyn and Mia were found and the kind of events that led up to the Baker family being infected and how they were as a normal family, which is really nice. So that's basically the entire thing. I've also noted down here as well that in some of the other influences, what really reminded me with Mia's character is Evil Dead 2, Linda.
Yep.
So, because obviously Linda kind of is dancing around headless with a chainsaw at one point, if I remember rightly, and messing around with her head. And she gets all like demonic, and she turns from like really sweet, like, you know, come on, Ash, whatever. And then like, I'll swallow your soul, whatever. And Marguerite is quite like the woman in the cellar. Maybe that was the first one or the second one. I can't remember.
The cellar was the first. I feel like
it
both.
might have been both, yeah.
Both have the cellar, yeah.
And I swear that she was also called Marguerite in that film as well. Maybe, I don't know.
Now I'm like, is it this? Oh.
It's something like Margaret. Dan's doing some research.
She was Henrietta in the first film.
Henrietta.
Sweet Henrietta.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you're right. Well done. And there's also a hint of like True Detective, the first series, where it's like that Louisiana, I don't know, kind of got vibes of that. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I felt like a lot of that fed into it a bit. But yeah, in conclusion, personally, I really loved the game. I thought it was great. I thought it was a real breath of fresh air for the Resident Evil franchise, which, to be fair, I think people felt like it got a bit stale. Basically, by that point, it didn't really feel like a horror game anymore. It felt like an action game. And this was like real return to its roots of being something that's like a pure horror experience. And VR has to be done. If anyone knows someone that's got a PSVR, they can just go and just, as we said, just try out the first couple of hours. Highly recommend it. Or they can watch you do it and have a similar experience.
Yeah. We'll start this month, and once I can figure Twitch out.
Yeah. Well, hopefully by the time this is out, I think you'll be on your way.
Twitch master.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You would have got it all sorted out. So yeah, what was your Twitch channel again?
It's twitch.tv/KDOX.
KDOX, great. And obviously there's Resident Evil Village. But yeah, what else is kind of going on in your world? What else is happening?
Right now, it's a lot of just Resident Evil. It's been quite a whirlwind. So I've been very busy with live signings, slowly starting to book and do conventions. So that's really exciting. I'm hoping, as the world opens up, to meet the fans in person that I've been meeting online so much.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so it's just been a lot of online right now. The acting world's opening back up, so auditioning and just starting to work again, which has been phenomenal. Nothing I can talk about yet. But I always tell people follow, I'm really big on Instagram and Twitter at KDOX. I keep the same thing through everything. It just makes it easier. Same handle. So Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, all of them are on that. And then, and Cameo. So I started doing those, which has been really, really fun, making videos for people.
Great.
Yeah.
What do people ask for as messages usually? They ask you to do like a growl.
They usually ask for my famous line, which my mom is always like, do you really have to constantly say that? Because I'm dropping the F-bomb. So I'm like, Mom, it's what they're paying for. They want to hear it. Sorry.
Give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. My favorite, though, I had one person who they basically bought a Cameo for their friend, and they wanted me to roast them as Mia because their friend always chooses Zoe when she plays RE7.
Ridiculous.
So Mia had to give her a little personal message of shame on her and not to piss me off because I would find her. Was
that quite therapeutic for you?
Cathartic, yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And what's really cool is on Cameo they keep, so like people can watch those videos to get an idea. So like I've done, birthday ones, I've done congratulations, I did the roasting one. It's so silly, but so much fun.
I bet. Nice one. Cool. Well, again, thank you very much for joining us on this episode today. And it was lovely having you on here, and it was great to kind of discuss Resident Evil 7 because I love that game. It's been one of the gems of most recent years in gaming. As I said, like I've played a lot of games, but nothing has quite come close to the VR experience of Resident Evil 7. That was brilliant, and you were a big part of that. So thank you for making that happen.
Glad I could terrify you.
Yeah, exactly. You did very well.
It terrified me because last thing I saw before I started this call was Mia's face screaming into the screen. So I was a bit intimidated, but thank you. It's been lovely.
Something
take it all back.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just like that.
But thanks very much. Thanks very much, Katie. And and we'll speak to you again soon, hopefully, when we cover Resident Evil 8 Village. I just need to play it.
Yes, you have to play first.
Yeah, that would help.
I'm just going to say Mia is basically a giant spoiler. So you have to play it to be able to talk about Mia at all.
Noted.
We'll get on it.
I will do so. Yeah. Cool. And everyone, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to Oddcast Movies, Music and Gaming. If you want to get in touch with us or get a movie, album or game put on our list to discuss, then email us at oddcastoddballs@gmail.com or a newwinterpodcast@gmail.com. This is part of a New Winter Podcast network, so head on over to anewwinter.net to check out our other shows. You can also follow us on Instagram at A New Winter, Twitter at A New Winter, and you can head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/A New Winter. Thanks for listening and see you again soon.